Okay, first thing you need to do is get your marking gauge out, and you set your marking gauge to the thickness of the material that you're using. So I have that done, and now I'm going to mark my tailboard. So here we go. I'm going to mark the tailboard here. Got that side. I'm going to go ahead and mark both sides. Of course, I'm not showing, I already have all this wood dimensioned. It is warped, though. This board is warped. Nice thing about dovetails is you can actually work with some warped wood and make it work. So both sides I'm going to mark here. So we'll mark the ends here because we will be removing the ends on this one. I'm going to take and use the other marking gauge on this one. So you just take this, loosen the wheel, bring this up till it's at the thickness of your board. And this one slices in. And so we're gonna make this. It's important to have somewhat of a reference line because you will have your gouges go in that reference line.
I keep saying gouges because of all the wood turning I do, but I mean chisels in the reference line.
Now, while we already have this set up, we can go ahead and mark our other boards too. Now, if you're doing a half-blind dovetails, you will need to adjust the thickness a little bit on how you mark this. We'll probably do a separate video for that. But for this, I am going to do the same thickness because that board's going to slide right in there. So it'll be the same thickness. So we will mark these. And on these, we won't need to mark the ends because there'll be pins out on the ends. And I am putting both of these boards in at the same time because I can make both dovetails at once, which will save me some time. So we will do the tails first on both sides here. I've got these dividers, and all I'm using, you can use a normal tape measure or something to divide these out. But what I did was I just put this to a level to where when I go and make this all the way out, I basically have the same amount of space from the edge to the mark out here, to that pin, as I do from the edge to where I started, okay? Now, you could shorten this and put way more tails in, or you could make it wider and put fewer tails in. That's up to you. But now that I have that, I'm gonna move this over. I'm gonna push this in so that I have a nice mark. And as I move this out, I'm gonna push this in so that I have this kind of marked with the holes. And so I'm marking it with the holes like that. And that one's a little off, but that's okay. This is the tails. They can be off a little bit. Okay, so now, this is not super critical, so you can just use a pencil, and I'm gonna use a pencil so that you can see it. Get my marking gauge here, and I'm gonna mark the pin. Okay, there's a pin there, and then I'm gonna come over here. You're not gonna be able to see this, but I'm gonna mark a pin. Right, like that. So there's gonna be pins out here. Tails are gonna be on the inside. And so I've got a mark right here. So that's the center of that. So I'm gonna mark on both sides of it because that's the center of the pin, okay?
I just want to take a quick opportunity here as I mark these pins to thank you for watching. Thank you for the comments, the likes, subscribing, everything that you do. Appreciate you helping me build this channel.
This does not have to be precise because I'm gonna cut this out and then we're gonna transfer it. And so I'll go ahead and use this marking gauge. Now, your tails are gonna wanna, your tails are gonna wanna come in like this, so you get your gauge until it does that. There you go. And so I've got that, and all you're doing is marking down to that line.
Now, one of the nice things about hand-cut dovetails is you don't have to make all of these tails the same size. This is really up to you. You can make one in the middle very big, make the ones on the end small. I mean, you can make whatever creative design you choose to. There's really no limit. The process will be the same no matter how big they are.
Now, we have a line about right here, so that's where those are going to go to. Okay, I'll show you that later. But what we're going to remove on this is all of this, and you can go ahead and mark it. We're going to remove all of that material, okay? We're going to remove that material because this is the tailboard. Okay, I have a saw. We're going to try to cut down these lines. This has little teeth on the end, and what I'm going to do is put my thumb there to mark that. And we'll get it started. And we're going to cut right down that line. And we want to cut to this line, which you probably can't see on the camera, but it's the line that we marked with our marking gauge at the very beginning, right? The line that we marked with one of these marking gauges. And so we're going to cut all the way to that, and we're done, okay? And then we'll come over here, and we'll do the same thing. If you're like me and you're starting to wear glasses, this is a time to get your glasses out because this does take some vision.
Now the saw I'm using is a dovetail saw made by Veritas company up in Canada. You can look at those on Lee Valley. No matter what you do, get you a good dovetail saw for this type of work. There's a lot of companies that make good ones. You will appreciate it.
Okay, there's one side. Now we've got to turn around and go to the other side.
Now you want to try to follow these lines going down at an angle. But since this is being cut first, the tailboard's being cut first, you're going to transfer it to the pin board. If you actually cut the line or you leave a little bit of the line, it's not the end of the world. What's important is that you're cutting it perpendicular. So the line that's marked on the very top, you want to make sure that that is directly perpendicular with the face of this board. I hope that makes sense. I think I explained that better in the pins first or tails first video I made.
Okay, there you go. Now we have our tails cut this way. Now what we're going to do is flip this over and cut those. So we're going to cut, there's a line right here that we made with the marking gauge. Don't know if the camera can see it, but we're going to try to cut that line. And we're really going to try not to mess that up. So don't want to mess that up. So there you go. There we go. Don't want to overcut that. There's what we have right now. So we've got that cut, that cut. We've got to remove this material, which I'll show you. Is put this chisel about 1/8 of an inch in. We want to get rid of the mass. So we're going to come in here and get you a board below so that you don't damage, because you'll go through and you don't want to damage your workbench. So just put your chisel about 1/8 of an inch away, or maybe a 1/16. Hit that a few times. Right like that. We'll do a couple of these. Nothing special here. You're just getting rid of some of the mass. This pine is really soft. I'm not used to working with this. Now you flip this over and this should pop right out. Make sure you have safety glasses on because this wood will fly out at you sometimes. There we go. This is just getting rid of the mass. Nothing fancy here, nothing like fine tuning or anything. Okay, so we popped all those loose. You know, some people, I forgot, they do a relief cut on this before they chisel it out. I'll do that on the other side and show you why you want to do that, because you can tell this is not coming out. So that's a step I forgot. If you don't do the relief cut, you really have a hard time getting some of these to come out. So I'm just going to step out over the ledge here a little bit. There we go. Just trying to get some of these out. There we go. Okay. So that didn't do it that way. So I'm gonna go do a relief cut. All I'm gonna do is cut this in line real quick. So put this here. We'll do a little relief cut straight down. This has not affected the dovetail at all. So we're just gonna come in here. We have the relief cut. We'll see how this works. So, yeah, it's already broke loose. Again, you're just getting rid of waste here. There's nothing too fine, nothing really fine woodworking about this at all. Flip this over. Knock that out. You don't want to get too close to the line. When I say the line, I'm talking about your reference line up here, your baseline. Don't get too close to that. If you mess that up, it's not good. Like right there, I kind of got in a hurry and messed that up a smidge, maybe. Now, let's see if this works. So we got these with the relief. Now you see how that comes right out. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. So now what I like to do is get a chisel that's similar to the size of this. I want to go get a bigger chisel. Looks like that right there is a little too big, maybe. That one there is about right. So we will put this in the line, okay? So you got it in the line, and then tilt it slightly towards you, okay? So that it's angled. You want it angled like that. So tilt it slightly towards you, and then knock it in. And go about halfway down in the line, slightly towards you, in the line, slightly towards you, in the line, slightly towards you.
And now we just flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. I did see a woodworker that made these pins the exact size of one of his chisels. That's a really good idea. That way you don't have to go try to pick a chisel that's, close to the size. You lay them out to fit just the chisel that you want to use. Clever idea. I'll do that next time.
So now we'll just clean those out a little bit, get rid of all that debris. Okay. You really don't care how clean that part in there is. It really doesn't matter. All that really matters is how clean it is right here where this meets, okay? So you want that to be right on the reference line. And I will tell you, this pine is actually, it's easy to chisel, but it's actually harder to make this a good dovetail. So just be aware that hardwood will be harder to chisel. You'll have to hammer a little harder, but it will not flake out and get damaged like this as much. We want to pair this to this line. I'll put that in the vise and I'll show you that. This is my pairing chisel, and I'm going to pair it right to the line over here. So there's a line that I had, and there's a line on the outside with my marking gauge. So I am trying to just pair that, and there we go. We'll go back around, make sure it's good on this side. It needs paired just a hair. So we'll just take it here, and there's a line, and we'll just take that in. If you cut this to the line, you can skip this step. So the better you are with your saw, you can skip that step. We have the 2 tail boards are finished, okay? 2 tail boards are finished. Now, we need to do the pin boards. So I'm gonna put it like this, okay? Now, if you see, this board is warped. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to clamp this, and it's gonna light. This board's really long, so this makes this much more difficult. But I have a bow in this board. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to clamp a board on here that makes this straight. So I'm gonna have to take a straight board, clamp it with some clamps to make it straight. If I put this flush up here, it might support that board a little bit. So that's what I'm gonna try to do. Tighten that down real good. Then we'll get this one up here, make that flush. We'll clamp it down. And hopefully this makes it square. There we go. That gets rid of that bow that's in that board. You want to line this up where this reference line is right on the edge of the board out here. We'll line it up where that line is right at the end. We'll line all that up right like that. So that'll be flush with it, okay? There we go. So we get that clamped, that'll hold that up there. Now if we can get this one down. There we go. This is where you need your X-Acto knife or your marking tool, because we're going to go in here and mark these. With your X-Acto knife, and you want to mark right along that line. Okay? Yeah. So you're simply marking all these on top. You're transferring. This is why I said when you first cut your tail boards, it wasn't that critical, because whatever you cut it at is what you're going to transfer. Okay. Use this. And now we're going to take those lines and we're going to transfer them down to our baseline that we have. So we'll take this, we'll put our knife blade in the what we just cut, bring over your tool and go straight down. Okay, your knife blade in there, bring over your gauge, straight down, knife blade in there, straight down. You can't see this on the camera, but there is a knife edge, like a line that I had already cut when I marked it. Now this one, I'm gonna have to do like left-handed. So we'll bring it over here, just allow you to see it. Okay, right, like that. And then these, you actually want to, this knife blade has a bevel on one side. You don't want to put the bevel up against here. It'll push it out just a hair. So you want to use the non-beveled side of your knife. So a non-beveled knife works best for this, because here you're really talking precision the best you can. These reference lines are what you're going to be going for. Okay, so there we go. Now we got those. Now we have to make those cuts. Man, I really wish that we could clamp this a little closer, because the closer you can get your saw to a clamp, the better it's going to be. The only other way I could do this would be to put it flat on the table and cut down. We'll see how this works without doing that. So again, we're going to cut to a line. Now we want to cut on the side of the tails. So I should mark that. We're going to remove this material here. We're removing this material, which should match our tail board. So now this is our pin board. So here we go. We'll cut on this side of the line.
Now, when we cut the tails, I told you it wasn't super critical to cut right against the line. And now that we're cutting the pins second, this is much more critical. You do not want to cut into the line you just marked with your cutting knife. You want to cut right next to it. Leave it a little proud if you have to. You can use chisels to clean it up to the line. But as you practice this, you will get to where you can cut right on the edge of that cutting line and probably not even need to use chisels. I haven't done this in a year, so I'm a little out of practice. But if this is something you do frequently, you will get good at it, just like anything else that you practice.
You want to be careful with hand saws when you don't have this like this, because it can come out and you can cut your finger just as good with a hand saw as you can with a power saw. Trust me, some of the worst cuts I've ever had have been with a hand saw, because you're putting so much force behind it, I think. Come in with your coping saw, okay? And you're gonna come in and then you're gonna cut close to the line, but don't cut the line. You can do this with a router or with some other tool, but I find the coping saw is about as easy as anything. And it's quiet. You can do all this work while relaxing in the quiet of the shop.
All we're doing with this coping saw is just removing all the excess waste. We'll have to clean this up with chisels in a minute. This is definitely more difficult than a normal project because I cannot get this board clamped close to where I'm sawing. So that's why that board's moving so much. This is much easier if you can clamp it close.
Okay. And now it's similar to what we did before. And I like to use a little chisel maybe to get rid of most of the waste here. So we're just going to get rid of some of the waste. Now remember, this is angled, so we're just getting rid of some waste, because you want to get it to about a 1/16 away or so. A 1/16 away from this reference line. Maybe a little bit more than the 1/16, but probably not an 1/8. Tilt it away just slightly. Not super critical yet, but there we go. So don't go to the reference line, but go close. Okay, we're just getting rid of the waste. Go about halfway. Don't go all the way through the other side. So just knock this about halfway down.
Then I fast forwarded through just the same old process for everyone. Now we're gonna flip it around and we'll do the other side here. Same process, go about a 1/16 or so away from the reference line. Go halfway down, make sure you pull the chisel towards you a little bit.
This is where I like to get a big chisel, because I like to have a reference line here most of the way. So I put that in the line, put that in your marking line, pull it slightly toward you. There we go. Get it in the line, just pull it slightly straight back, halfway down. And now we already got this almost to the line, so we did pretty good on the cut here. So we're just going to go pull it straight towards you, put it in the line, pull it straight towards you a little bit. There it is.
If you don't remove this all the way to about a 16th, let's say you leave an 1/8 inch of wood, what'll happen is the pressure of the wood will actually cause the chisel to damage that reference line. So that's why you want to remove most of the waste up to about a 16th or 32nd away from the line. And then you put your chisel right in the line and pull it towards you there. And it gives it a nice crisp cut to the line, which is what you're looking for. And now I'm just going to clean up some of those little chunks of wood and stuff. The part that's in the middle there is not that important. Just getting rid of some waste so that it won't get caught as I try to put the tail board on top of this pin board here.
Some of this needs cleaned up, so I'm going to pare it a little bit. There's a little bit of here by the line, so I'm going to pare this where I did not saw to the line, so I know it's off a little. So I'm just going to pare that off a little. You don't have to, you can try to see if it fits before you do this, but it looks to me like it's way off. So if you see a place where it's way off, just go ahead and fix it. But if you do your cuts good, this step is not needed. But I can tell that either I needed my glasses or I didn't do my cuts very good, so.
I keep mentioning cuts that I didn't do good. What I'm saying is I did not make the saw cuts perfectly to the line. If you get good at making your saw cuts perfectly to the line and you transfer the lines from your tailboard, you can eliminate all of these steps, and all you will do is use your saw, and that's it.
So let's see how this fits. This is it. And if we can fine tune this if we have to. Get a dead blow mallet, works pretty good, dead blow hammer. You want to make sure you watch to make sure it's not too much pressure on these wings, on these pins that are on the outside, because they will split out if you got the wood pushing against them. So if it's too tight, you see it's too tight somewhere, you can just take it off and just take a little bit of wood off with your chisel. That looks pretty good. We'll put all that in. It's not perfect. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. But for not doing dovetails for at least probably a year ago, that's not too bad for my first dovetail. So that's the whole process. Some keys is to make sure you have that reference line, the reference line on the base, because that is what you cut to, and then that is what you put that chisel in. And when you put that chisel in, point it slightly away, and that way you do not have anything that keeps this board from going flush up against that line. So you put it in the chisel line, or in that reference line, pull it, just angle it slightly away, go halfway in, flip the board over, chisel line, slightly away, halfway in, and you'll basically have, it'll be kind of going inside in the middle. It'll be like, there's no wood in there, but it doesn't matter because it'll be hidden. The other key is whenever you're doing the cutting and stuff, if you have your fingers closer to here instead of up here, it's easier, right? And that's why cutting these off makes it easier. I probably should do that with more of them. This is much easier to work with that cut off, so you can be really close to the wood like that. I prefer to have these pins here slightly sticking out. You would not want it the other way, because if you had it the other way, you would have to hand plane the whole board to get down to where your pins are. But if your tails and your pins stick slightly out, then you can hand plane it. And the way you do that is whenever you do the thickness of your board, okay, make it just a hair, and I mean a hair like a 30-second bigger. So this opening is a 30-second bigger than the thickness of the wood, and that way when you make your reference, your line is going to make it to where all of your pins and all of your tails on the other side will be proud of this flat surface by about a 32nd of an inch, maybe even a 64th. And that way, all you have to do is hand plane or sand these little nubs down. and then it'll all be good, okay? If you've got questions, please ask, because I covered a lot, but I can show you anything closer up that might be helpful. And I may post this video before I finish this project so that I have time to maybe show you what you might have questions about in this project. So if you've got questions about this project, please hit me up as soon as I post this video so that you can ask and I can try to get them answered quickly, because I will be out here working on this project. I'm happy with that right there. Once you hand plane this, sand it, it will look pretty good. So